So 2016 BMW i3 EV. I've had this car a couple of weeks, and there's one thing, it's a really good car, I like it. It's nice to drive, very fast, probably the fastest real world car I've ever owned. I've owned some fast cars, but the 0 to 30 on this thing's ridiculous. So it's not Tesla fast, obviously, but certainly the fastest accelerating car. This will accelerate a BMW M3, even the i8 up to 30 miles an hour. So around the doors and around town, very, very quick car. However, there's an annoying rattle coming from here. I've been on the forums and there's lots of people experience the same kind of thing. Obviously, a lot of the forum posts are from the US. This is a right-hand drive car, but it's a mirror image and they're getting a rattle or a squeak from the glove box area, glove box lid here, around this area. So I was going to take the glove box out today, and I looked at it a couple of days ago and I was like, oh, there's some kind of special little covers here and I didn't want to ruin them prying them out, but I'm going to have a go today because this squeak is driving me mad. I wanted to take the glove box out myself to have a look. So the first thing is there's 6 screw holes in here and they're all Torx bits and there's all these little covers on. Now I didn't want to take these off and damage them, but I've prized a Stanley knife blade just underneath and they've just popped right off, so that's not a problem. And there's 6 screws. So I've read in the forums about pulling this vent out and taking the glove box out. So I undid this screw halfway and then I thought, well, I'm having a good push of the glove box here and I'm not really hearing the kind of squeaky rattle I'm getting when I'm driving along the road. So I'd half undone this bolt and then I thought I'll try and take the vent out. So the vent, they kind of say you pull it towards you, which you do. This is already loose. I haven't put it back properly. They say about, you know, putting rags to stop damaging the leather, and I do kind of get that, but it's okay if you're careful. So in here you'll see some of the forums saying about the gas damper. Very hard to see. Oh, it's on that side. The gas damper rattling, or this arm vibrating against something underneath. And I'm not seeing it. That's fairly rigid. It's not making a squeak or a rattle. I've heard other people saying that the wood, or some of the models have got plastic on the top, squeak in between the glove box lid and that panel. I've got no evidence of any plastic dust or anything round there, so the glove box feels fine. So what I've done is I've taken the air vent out and I've gone and driven around the roughest roads around my local area, and this squeak is completely gone. No rattle at all. It's definitely not the glove box. Definitely is either the vent itself or the way it's sitting in. So I drove around, no rattles, and then I thought, you know, I wonder if just because I've undone that screw halfway, I wonder if that's released some kind of pressure and stopped the glove box from squeaking. So I stopped, I've tightened that right back down, and the squeak's still gone, so that's fine. It's got to be this venting. So I'll have to have a think about what to do about that. I've had a good pull and a good shove, and there's nothing anywhere here which makes the squeak. But then I gave the vent a good squeeze and a good shake, and there's not really anything on that makes the squeak either. You know, I think it's just literally the plastic rubbing against the leather and making a squeaking sound. So we'll have a think about that. So the first thing I'm going to try is just pledge. It's obviously got a wax component to it, so I've spread it all the way around the edge of the vent. I'm just going to get a cloth and I'm going to rub that in, and on the leather I'm going to be quite careful, maybe spray a load on my finger and then just rub it right the way around that edge where the vent would sit, and then we'll push the seat back in. I would just hope that little bit of lubrication, it could just be that the leather, this car's nearly 3 years old, not quite 3 years old, but nearly 2 years 10 months, something like that. And before anybody says, well, why would you mess on with squeaks and rattles when it's under warranty? Well, usually squeaks and rattles in the dashboard at most manufacturers are only covered for the first 12 months. So if I go back to BMW, they're going to fleece me for a lot of money taking this apart. So for the sake of a little bit of pledge, which I've got in the house anyway, feel free to use Mr. Sheen if you want. I'm not associated with Pledge or Mr. Sheen in any way. I'm going to rub that on and we'll see how we get on. Right, so we've smeared that on all the way around the edge, and now we're just going to push fit the vent back on. So again, just really carefully, as careful as we can, so I don't scratch the leather. This will kind of line up, and I'm hoping, oh, simple as that. Simple as that. So it goes on much easier than, but then again, it's still kind of here it's got potential to squeak. I'm not really sure if there's anything I can do about that. There presumably is, because people have taken it to the dealer and have said that it's fixed. The dealer's fixed it. So I'd be curious to know what they've done to fix that. But I can hear straight away it's got the potential to squeak and rattle. But anyway, before we put the caps back on the glove box, we'll take it for a drive and we'll see what happens. Right, so that's the test drive complete and it's fixed it. I'm amazed that's been really easy. I've had the car just a couple of weeks and it didn't squeak when I first got it, or I didn't notice it really. Perhaps where I bought it the roads were smoother, and then as soon as I got home I was like, oh, this is really ruining the enjoyment of this car. So yeah, now obviously pledge, it's not a leather product, it's a wax product, and it probably will dry out. So this is probably going to be, well, I'm hoping at worst a regular maintenance issue, maybe once every 6 months or something like that. Pop the vent out, spread it around with pledge or whatever, and then stick it back. And as long as I do that, well, it remains to be seen. Obviously we'll give it a few days. If it dries out in a couple of days, it's going to be more of an issue. The second thing I'll try is I'll try some kind of Connolly leather conditioner or Auto Glim leather kind of moisturizer to see if that makes any difference, because that might be just better for the leather. But this leather is quite dull and I don't really want to put any kind of gloss on it, which is why I've been really careful to put the pledge on with my finger just round on the unseen bits. But again, so only if you press it, it squeaks here. Whether that'll squeak on big bumps, I've just gone out on a fairly rough road and there's not been a peep out of it. And again, maybe that's because I've just put it on. But for anyone who thinks, well, you've got to take the glove box off, and I've seen people on the forum saying about putting Velcro down here, the furry side of Velcro, you can get this stuff called fleece tape. Now, ironically, I bought a roll off Amazon this morning, but it hasn't turned up yet. And as it turns out, I don't think I'll need it. Behind the vent, there isn't really anywhere I could put the fleece tape to stop this rubbing against the leather anyway. But everything else seems fine. Everything else is really sturdy. So the only thing I haven't tried is whether, so actually the vent was open before when it was really rattling. I wonder if the vent was closed. Maybe I have heard people say when they've taken the vent off, the butterfly flap, which is about here in the middle, is quite loose, and they've wondered if that's what's rattling. But when I took this apart, I did check that after reading that forum, and everything seems fairly tight, so I don't think it was that. I think it's just literally plastic on this side, plastic on leather on that side. I don't really care which one's squeaking. I've coated the whole lot with effectively lubricant, albeit it's just furniture polish, and that seems to be okay for now. So, but if you want to take the glove box out, that's how you do it. Just a little Stanley knife underneath each one of these plugs. So I'm presuming, because I haven't put one back in yet, that it just pushes back in, which to do. All the rest of them should just be in the glove box. So we'll just pop all of these back in, and for now certainly that's the job done. Now I don't need to take these covers off to get that vent out again. I just need to lift that lid up, and it is quite difficult because there's no real finger hole, but I just prized a screwdriver just right in this corner here, and that gave me enough leverage just to get a fingernail in, and then you kind of pull it this way. So they say pull it up, and then some forums go, no, not really up, more up and towards you, and yeah, they're right, it's kind of that way. So a nail in the back on there, or a little screwdriver, and then it's just a little tug. There's a couple of metal prongs either side, so obviously you've got to be careful they don't mark the leather here or the leather here at the front. Some people have put tape on or put a cloth, and I did have a cloth on standby, a soft cloth to stop any marking, but they also say to put a cloth down this gap at the back if you take the glove box out, because usually the lid's open, and they say you can sometimes get a scratch on the leather from the back of the glove box. But obviously in the end I didn't end up taking the glove box out, but that's how you take the glove box out. That's how I've fixed the rattle on this car for now. And again, what I'll do is I shall leave a comment after a couple of weeks to let you all know if that's come back. Now I've also heard, some people say it's coming from a rattle from the bezel around this sat-nav bit, and I kind of get that because it is creaking a little bit, but it doesn't creak for me going over the bumps. That's not been an issue for me, but I can see how it might be. Some people have stuck tape along the top. I can see some kind of rubber surround or something being the way to go for that, or just having to bite the bullet and try and get a new frame. Perhaps someone's tried to have it open at some point and there's been the crack some of the clips that keeps these two together. But either way, that's sort of my problem. Those 6 bolts to get the glove box out, that's how you get to them. Caution about that. That's how you get the vent out. That's what seems to have solved it for me. And I'll put something in the comments later on.